Welcome to the Experts Podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of what it really means to be in the media. Featuring interviews with media stable experts and some of Australia's most prominent media. We'll break down some of the myths, the fears, the skills and the knowledge needed to succeed in the media. The Experts Podcast is for the business owner, communicator, PR professional, leader of industry or anyone looking to develop their profile to be a recognised expert. The Experts Podcast is powered by Media Stable.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Experts Podcast. Nick Hayes with you. Hello, Carmen Braidwood.
Hi, Nick. Good to be here.
Good to be here. And we've got a really special guest with us, Carms. You know, we tend to bring some of the guests. I think I call them special every single time. But this one, for a lot of people out there, if you're a football follower, and particularly in the West, if you're a West Coast Eagles fan, you'll love hearing this. Because he's not just a footballer or a former footballer.
Well, he's a premiership player.
He's a premiership player. He's a bit of a broadcaster.
Yeah, and I always knew. I picked it a good half a decade ago at least. I said, this man's going to be a broadcaster after he finishes working
so
in the
this is your fault, is it? Is this your fault, Carmen?
It might be. I might have had a little something to do with helping it out.
Let's have a chat to him. His name's Will Schofield. Will, welcome to the show.
G'day, Nick. G'day, Carmen. Yeah, that was the Carmen and Fitzy show.
Yeah.
On 96 FM.
Yeah, and you were our footy guy, you're the footy guy, but also the West Coast Eagles representative, come to talk footy with us each week.
Oh, well, the West Coast representative, correct. I was the one that used to come into the studio, and the Freo ones never used to come in. You used to get them on the phone if they even had a representative. So
spot on, Will.
I kind of got it from a very early age that I knew that being in person is a lot easier to talk than doing it over the phone.
Spot on.
Yeah,
and
correct.
You know what? Your attitude to media as a footy player, and I've interviewed tons of footy players over the years, your attitude to media, I think, changed me from being a Dockers supporter into a West Coast supporter.
That is phenomenal.
Because as a fan of the Dockers, I was so pissed off that they could never get a Docker on the radio.
So hang on. Let me just get this straight. You changed your allegiance, your football team, just off the back of Will Schofield coming into the studio as opposed to the Fremantle. To be fair, it's a bit of a distance for a Fremantle player to get up to
and my attitude.
Studio.
Just not just my presence, my attitude.
It's his attitude. He just was keen. He was a nice guy. And when you won the premiership, I was like, well, how can I not be happy?
That's probably enough all we've got time for today. Fremantle swapping to West Coast, the job's done.
I think you've achieved everything that you've ever had to achieve. Hey, but it is a really good piece of advice to anyone out there. Make the effort to get into the studio, because if you are doing an interview or if you want to express yourself in a way that is going to come across authentic and real, no better to do it in front of the person that you're broadcasting with. Over the phone, it can be so distant.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly got better at it as I've grown more experienced in the media, but from I was quite young when we were working together, Carmen, back then, and I still understood, though, that first and foremost, get in front of people and make connections, because it's just difficult to jump on the phone. You don't know who you're speaking to, prompting, and actually, you can use hand and eyes, and it's very different.
And you did well at probably playing to our egos a little bit. I could always tell you'd been listening to the show. Like you'd walk in and you'd be like, oh, that was funny, or that was sucked, or how did that work?
Well, that's it, right? Well, if you walk in somewhere to a business interview or even something like this, or somewhere that you haven't researched, you can tell. People can tell you don't know what you're talking about and you don't know what you're doing there. So that's just a part of research, I suppose.
Now, was it you that put your hand up as the West Coast Eagles representative, or did the West Coast Eagles say, Will, get your butt into 96 and have a chat?
It's a good question. I've always wondered how this works.
No, that was me. I mean, footy is just such an interesting space, because you've got such great exposure, for one, and you've got, for use of a better word, you've got pull, right? People know who you are. You can walk in and talk about things, and people listen, which makes no sense, because we're football players, right? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I've always wondered about
Correct.
that.
But if you use it in the right way, you also have this fishbowl type setting where the footy clubs and the industry wants to protect everything, and the insight isn't encouraged. It certainly wasn't for me as a young age to give insight and be honest, but that's how I am as a person. So finding the right balance between giving insight and being honest. So when you, Carmen, would ask me a question about game style, rather than saying, look, I don't want to talk about that, you can talk about things and be honest, but be protective of your brand or your club's brand or your employer's brand. So that's probably a lot of my style is giving honesty and being truthful.
Yeah.
But I'm still smart enough to not tell you exactly what
you
I'm
had
thinking.
to toe the company line. You know, footy players, I think we all know, are very heavily media trained, and a great frustration as a broadcaster for me used to be asking footy players questions, getting the same answer. So when you got someone like Will in studio, it was always very refreshing because you could make it fun.
So did Will finally say, well done, Will, great, you had a great game. Yeah, it was a full team effort. Did Will just say, yeah, it was all me. I did it. I'm the one that won the game for us.
That was the grand final. I saved that for 2018, which I did win by myself. No one else had anything to do with it other than me.
I was so happy for you watching that game. And we spoke the day after. Do you remember that call?
No. Sorry? Are you serious?
Yeah, I am serious. My producer called the team and you were all in the airport in the Virgin Lounge.
You are kidding. I did not know this story.
You were on 6PR weekend breakfast with me the day after the 2018 grand final.
You are joking.
You don't remember it, do
I
you?
do not at all.
Well, you were funny.
No. Oh, I'll tell you what, it was funny. I hadn't had a lot of sleep, Carmen.
You could tell, but you were wonderful. You're so generous. And I remember you getting on the phone and going, hello, Carmen, because I could tell you were thinking, this cow hates the Eagles. She's a Docker supporter.
No.
What's she going to say now?
No. So that is one thing, though, that I've come out of footy and I'm a West Coast player and I'm a Premiership player and people pigeonhole not only the football side but the West Coast side as well. I will give myself some credit. I have no real allegiances to football clubs. Look, I love West Coast. They gave me everything professionally, but I will just as quickly criticise, not really my style, but I'll just as quickly speak about West Coast in a negative form that I would Freo. I've never been a West Coast everything Freo kind of guy because I was never a fan either. They were my employer, West Coast.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you didn't have that West Australian upbringing that that causes us to feel that way.
Yeah.
You were a Geelong boy.
am a Geelong boy.
Am a Geelong boy,
Never,
correct?
never take Geelong out of the boy.
Yeah, but what happened? Couldn't get a gig at the Cats? Or
No. Well, I mean, for footy, I was drafted as a 17-year-old, so you go into the pool of every hopeful of that year, and it's your best guess is where you're going to head. Yeah, so there's no real pathway to play from where you're from. So I was pretty ready to get out of Geelong. I've always been probably a bit more mature for my age. I've got two very older brothers that I used to hang out with as a 15-year-old. I'd be hanging out with my 30-year-old brother,
cool.
and so that sort of added some maturity to it. But like West Coast and Western Australia has been the best thing ever. And professionally now, I've been here long enough that if it wouldn't make any sense for me to go home.
You're not going. You're staying put.
I have no business connections. I have no profile whatsoever. And my wife's family's from here, so all I would be going home for is to hang out with my mates, which is great, but you can't make a living out of that.
You and I have taken a similar path. I'm originally from Melbourne as well, except I just didn't win a premiership. But Will, you're a broadcaster now, and I think this is where you're heading with your professional career moving forward, because you're a podcaster, but also just come off the back of a summer series with 6PR. Really enjoyed listening. I've actually gone on the record as saying you were the best on ground as far as the fill-ins. We don't like calling them the B team, do we, Carmen?
It's the B team.
It's the B team.
Yeah,
some of them were C and some of them were D. But can I just say, Will, what I love about what you're doing is that your approach to it and genuinely interested in your interviews with experts and commentators and with anyone really that just presents themselves in front of you. You've got a skill there. Where did that come from?
You'd go as far back as my upbringing, my mum and dad, really. But, having that level of intelligence to be able to hold a conversation and it probably strip back the ego a little bit. Even though I've been a footy player and had a public profile, I don't always think it's about me and what I think matters. Although it does, if you've got a guest in front of you, that's what matters. Especially as a broadcaster, as a host. People, they'll hear your voice and they're there tuning in to listen to you, but they're interested in the story or the person and so
what's in it for them.
Well, that's right. And then to make that easier, you have to listen. Like you have to. The biggest thing that I was taught, Russell Wolfe was a huge mentor of mine. I cut my teeth, I suppose, over at the ABC. I did a summer of digital which had about 4 listeners. I ran my own show in there for about 8 weeks.
That was hard yards you did
correct.
to improve your craft.
Well, yeah, and before that I was on breakfast. Well, before that I was 96 with Carmen.
Wasn't
and then
all us,
bounced,
Will, I know that.
Covered for Zave Ellis over at Nova, and then I did Russell and Nadia breakfast. I used to go on every week. So I did that for 3 years unpaid. I jumped on Fridays for a half hour to an hour for nothing, which is really rare as a footballer because they, one, it was the ABC, that's why, but 2, footballers get paid to talk, and whether that's right
easily.
or wrong.
You kind of get the gigs without even having to try it hard, I suppose.
So I sat down with Russell before I went onto the ABC and I said, look, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to increase my experience and exposure. Let's do something. He said, look, I'm going to be honest right now, not going to pay you, but I'll teach you and give me experience. So he turned into an incredible mentor for me, and just a massive loss to the industry, losing him like we did not too long ago. Just a great man, but the thing that made him great, and hopefully I learned a lot from him, was how he was with people. And so I'd like to think that I have that in me, that you can talk to people, that you can converse and listen, and that's the most important thing. It's one of the biggest things he preached to me was listening.
Yeah, I think listening is the number one thing. A bit of advice for anyone in media is listen to the question, listen to what is going on, and really responding back to also to the environment that you're in. What level? What kind of emotional level are we at? What kind of speed and tempo are we at?
And you cannot listen as a guest on media or an interviewer if you're sticking to a script. You've got to get your eyes up, and you've got to stop speaking from rote memory and just riff.
So at ABC, everything's scripted there because as a host you panel, so you don't have a panelist.
What is this? What is this voodoo of a speaker who's paneling at the same time?
Well, it's
on
crazy
the radio?
though, because you're speaking, right, and you're hosting a guest, and you've got to know where you're getting out, what time. They're very they're automatic news over there, so there's no 7:01. It's on the dot, and you've got to press the right button. So I didn't really get any training. I had about 10 minutes training before I was chucked on air.
Wow. Will.
And so you're scripted over there, and you're right. The scripting is horrible for listening because you're just reading your next question.
But how can you script Will Schofield? Yeah, that would be like trying to hold back the tide. What are you? Who's crazy to even think that you can do that?
Well, what I hope happened, Will, is that you were able to hang the Will personality over that script. And, and that's what any of us can do. If you are thrust into a situation where you must work from a script, and I often am as a, I do television, which is sometimes quite heavily advertorial, you have to find a way to make it palatable by hanging a bit of Carmen personality on top of this thing that's a bit of a client thing.
Otherwise, you're just a newsreader. I'm not saying that's poor, but that's very straight up and down reading the news, right? They're reading a script, and that's how you do it. You need to be able to add your tone. And for me, that's being more relaxed and listening. And if there's a question that needs to be asked, asking that, not going, okay, what colour shirt are you wearing? Okay, grey. Tell me where you bought that. You need to be able to bounce around a bit, right?
Are there any skills you've taken from your footy career over to broadcasting?
Yes. Yeah, lots. It's highly structured, disciplined, hard-working. Being an elite athlete is a great avenue to work in the media because you've got to be able to work hard. You've got to be able to be resilient. You've got to be able to strip your ego back because, especially for someone like me who was dropped every second week playing for West Coast, you can't drop your bundle when something doesn't go right. And also the public nature and the feedback, the instant feedback you get on radio, you get that as a football player as well.
Yeah.
I had someone say to me not that long ago, actually, around Christmas time, I had to go and study at Whopper for 4 years in order to get the job you're doing. They were pretty, I guess, angry. I was jealous, whatever it was.
Yeah.
My response back to that was, well, I had to play 14 years as an elite athlete.
Yeah.
To get, I had to do my time too, and I've put in a lot of work. I haven't just rolled in because I'm a football name.
No, that's right.
If you got any footballer off the street, they couldn't come in and talk or run a show.
Maybe a little different if you were on a celebrity a reality TV show that you've been on there for 2 months, and then all of a sudden you're now the host of a breakfast program that's been running for 12 years.
I know.
Top rating.
And that can frustrate people, but honestly, getting that job's one thing, but then keeping it is another. So those people who do get that kind of perceived overnight success, they will prove themselves in the getting the runs on the board. And Nathan Morris is a good example in our city of someone who's done that.
And he's good. He's good. But he's an exception. I mean, he's someone that they don't really normally last that long.
Yeah, but he was one of the first series of Big Brother, and because he's a freaking hilarious guy, he got on that show and now he's doing radio.
I'd be very surprised if he's not one of the most hardworking people in the industry.
Exactly.
Correct. Hello, Nathan listens to the Experts podcast. Hey, of your 21 other colleagues on the football field, is there anyone else that you've played with that could be doing what you're doing? I mean,
well, not really. Oscar Allen's one that I see a lot of myself in him. He's not pumping my own tyres up, but you've got to be smart enough as a footballer to answer the questions with some insight. Yeah. So if I would say 80%, 90% of athletes aren't quite smart enough to be able to do it, so they just give the team answers, the straight up and down answers that don't give any insight because they don't know how to protect the brand while giving insight. So it's hard to do. But yeah, Oscar Allen's very good. I mean, you see Zave Ellis is in the media.
Yep.
He's doing a good job over with Basel. But there's not too many. You know, Sharrod Wellingham does some stuff in the footy space, but getting yourself out of football, of that, persona that, okay, all he knows is sport and footy, that's difficult. So you have to be able to put runs on the board, like you said, and be able to be diverse with who you speak to and listening. Again, you've got to be able to listen.
Now, you're also a man who's turning out to be remarkably entrepreneurial. Has that always been a part of who you are, or did the club give you some training that helped you sort of do things like start businesses?
I think, starting businesses has got to be self-driven. I think that's difficult to teach sometimes, that sort of flares. But I've kind of always had that within me, especially towards the back end of my career at West Coast. I started setting up a few businesses, doing some different things. I mean, I actually met with someone at the footy club today and spoke about coming out of the game. You live in this highly structured, highly organised, a specific goal to reach for, the Premiership Cup, right? That's all that footballers ever want to do. You come out of that and you have nothing. And I don't mean no money or somewhere to live. I mean, you don't have a goal. It's difficult to switch your mindset from, okay, we're going to win a premiership and I'm going to train this, and this, and I'm going to be at training this day, to, all right, you're on your own.
Yeah, and when that goes wrong, it's very well documented, isn't it? We see it a lot.
Well, that's why it's common, because it's difficult. It's not easy. Like, I prepared myself well. I'd set a business up while I was playing, or two businesses actually, and it's still difficult because everything, your whole life changes. It'd be like working in media your whole life, and then you get either retire or get sacked.
You get sacked. No one in radio till you've been sacked, and that's what happened to me.
Well, I retired, but I got sacked effectively.
I never got through the front door.
But like, you kind of don't know. Once you finish up, you need something to do. But once it happens, you've got to be able to move to something completely different.
I think what you did was very important, starting before it happens. It's an inevitable end to a career like yours and a career like mine. The minute I walked in the door at 96 FM, I knew I was there on borrowed time. I was like, this is going to end one day.
Yeah.
And so I did things like set up my business website. I didn't know what the business was yet, but I had the website. You just do little things. You learn little things along the way to prepare yourself for the inevitable end. Because unfortunately, everything comes to an end.
Well, everything does come to an end. And that line of questioning is going to come to an end because I just want to tap into a little bit about your podcast.
Yes.
Will. I mean, it's called Backchat 2.0.
Well, we've cut the 2.0, just Backchat.
Is it just Backchat?
We've cut 2.0. 2.0.
What is the 2.0? Was there a form of Backchat?
There was a formerly known as.
Oh, right.
Well, so I started Backchat
Yeah.
in about my third year with a mobile phone in between us.
Yeah.
It was myself and Cale Morton, actually.
Right.
And then I was always a constant. Cale got delisted. Cal Sinclair came in and did it with me. He did some radio over here in Perth. He's over in Sydney now.
He's good talent.
Save Ellis did it for a bit. Jacob Brennan did it for a bit. But it's kind of always me. And then we ended up getting it sponsored at the club.
Is that by Quirky Jerky?
No.
Your sponsor?
This is when I was at the club. And and I had to shut it down because we had some disagreements with where those. Anyway.
Okay.
So I shut it down.
Sure.
So when I rebooted it, we had to call it something with something extra.
Sure.
But you know what? Backchat's mine, so it's Backchat.
Yeah, well done.
So anyway, that's my podcast now.
Yeah.
So what's it all about?
Insight, real sports insight. So given my experience in literally what I've been talking about right now, I understand how much insight can be given if the right questions are asked, if the right environment is there. Sports people, whether you love, sport, people love sport. Doesn't matter what you do. Sport in some form is a part of most people's lives. And I think people want insight. They just don't understand how much can be given. So I've built my own studio. I've got something above that podcast, which is effectively Backchat Studios, that we're going to bring a bunch of podcasts underneath. And really, it's about insight. So whether it's sport or if it's in business or if it's in real estate or if it's in growing grass, whatever it is, that's what I want to do.
I've got a sponsor for you for your growing grass one. You know him, Michael Martinez.
Positively Green.
Oh God, yeah, he would love that. What I do like about your style, and I think this is something where it's quite unique and different, that you can ask always the same questions. And we don't like to ask the same questions here, Carms, do we? On the Experts podcast.
So far.
Well, we try to go off a little bit off the rails because we want to get behind the scenes. And I think you do that beautifully. And I refer back to the Andrew Bogart interview that you did at one of our best basketballers to ever run.
Yep.
He started off very hard.
Stiff.
But you managed to warm him up and get a genuine character out that I was sitting there going, how are you doing this?
What's the secret?
What is the secret? Is it because as an elite athlete, or is it because you've sort of felt the same things that he's felt? You got him out of his...
You're demonstrating to me that you listen to the podcast because you're spot on. Yeah. When he first sat down, he was just, stiff. Well, because that's how athletes are, because it's the media, right?
They're
I'm not going to give this person anything.
Yeah.
Specifically Andrew Bogut, you just have to make him laugh. So I don't know if you remember specifically. I do. I asked him, right, you're Australia's best basketball expert, number one draft, went through your life in college. You went into the NBA, played 10 years in the NBA. What was more difficult, that grind, turning yourself from a nobody into absolutely our best basketball expert of all time, or going for Essendon for the last 15 years? He's an Essendon supporter. I did a bit of research, knew he was an Essendon supporter. I hadn't played finals for 23 years or whatever it is.
Yep.
And it made him laugh. Yeah. And then as soon as he laughed, he realised I wasn't there to get him. I'm not out to get him. So, I definitely use that. I like loosening people up a little bit. So whenever I did pre-records for 6PR, or even when you came in, having a chat before you interview.
Yeah.
Rather than just sitting down and going, all right, sit down, mate. Yeah, all right, we're about to go in 10 seconds. People get nervous. Doesn't matter how experienced they are.
Yeah.
And you guys, that's what you're preaching, right, is the expert side of things. You can sit down and know everything you need to talk about, but being in front of a microphone, putting headphones on, lights on, you can get nervous.
Yeah. And if you're not prepared for that, it can really throw you.
So how do you beat nervousness? Laughing. And then you relax, and then you're just having a conversation, and everyone can talk to people.
Yeah, check it out, people. Hard chat.
Backchat. Come on.
Hard chat was not available. Hard chat. Yeah, let's speak hard. Carms knows I make a mistake. We just want a reminder that it's what's there. And then remember that backchat.
Yeah, Backchat. So and we're videoing that as well. So we got really big ambition to turn that into a similar to a lot of American podcasts where they do live shows on YouTube that backdoors into video content, that backdoors into a podcast.
Yep.
That's kind of what we're putting together, and it's been exciting. There's a lot of work though. It's not just sit down with a mobile phone like I used to and put it in the middle of us and.
Well, quality now, because you've got to deliver a product to an audience that's expecting quality.
Yeah.
You can't deliver half-baked material anymore.
And you want it to look and sound great, and you want to do a lot of things with it, but that all takes time, like you point out. How have you managed to actually structure that? Because my biggest feedback from my clients, businesses, is like, I have no time to do this. Yeah. How do you implement?
Good question. I mean, I was too busy. I was running, the businesses I set up when I was playing footy mine was a digital marketing agency, which we turned in 18 months into a pretty decent deal. I thought we had 40 clients and we're running effectively digital teams for the entire, every client. And we couldn't hire people. So it got crazy. So having moved out of that and sold myself out of that, it's given me more time. Really, you need time. And honestly, I've had to put a lot of my own money into it. And we're at the point now where we've got listenership where I can go and get it sponsored. We've signed a couple of sponsors the last couple of weeks. But it's been so difficult because you can't, it's the chicken or the egg. You can't just put a product out there and we do this and this for free. because you need the time, you need some money to go and get the equipment to distribute it, and you need good people as well. So I'm pretty fortunate with my business partner there, Dan Const, who's my co-host, as you two are working very well together. But we've got a bunch of guys from uni helping us out as well. So it's been hard.
Just while we're on Dan, can you ask Dan to stop mentioning his best four figures, 5 for 16 for Tuart Hill? It's
Really?
driving me insane. Every time he just wants. Does he have that little cricket ball in his hand?
Has
all the
to
time?
be done, mate. So that's one thing we do on the podcast. We ask the same question. You worried about the same questions. We do ask one question to every guest, which is, what is your best sporting achievement?
Yeah.
Not in your selected sport. That's another thing that, honestly, although it's funny, that's to get them off guard.
I was going to say that's a great icebreaker, because for Andrew it was poker.
Yeah.
Andrew Bogart is an exceptional poker player.
Yeah. And that'll become something that Backchat is famous for as well. You know, that's a thing you can really hang your hat off. And all of us can answer that question, even me, with
Correct.
no sport background.
What's your best sporting achievement?
It would have been catching the cricket ball when Brian Lynn hit it in primary school at Falls Road. And the whole school literally stopped and went, Carmen caught that ball.
Yeah.
No one could believe it more than me.
That's exactly what it is. And we ask these athletes. So Peter Bowl, right? We interviewed Peter Bowl, which is my favourite interview I've ever done in my entire career, because I was an 800-metre runner, so I got my fanboy on quite a lot, right?
Love
Peter
that.
Bowl. But asking him, and he can dunk a basketball. He was a basketballer before he was a runner. So it just continues on. All footballers are all got sporting background. You know, Chris Marston was a great runner, and Daniel Venables won an under 9 80-metre hurdles race. He's state champion under 9 80-metre hurdle. It's funny, and it makes them laugh, and then do your thing.
Well, my one was the 1993 Mordialloc Football Club Best Utility Reserves. I've got to throw the reserves in because I wasn't seniors, but
It's even better when it's like that.
It's
the reserves,
good.
Mordialloc.
There
you
you
go.
Club. Yeah, no, it was big back in those days,
It
mate.
all paints a picture.
1993.
Memories.
If there's one thing that you're looking forward to in your broadcast career, because that is where you're heading and doing, where do you want to take this? You've got your businesses that you're doing with your podcast. Where do you think you can take this?
Yeah, I've got really high ambition for what I'm doing with the space. Like, not only we have the podcast, but I guess I'm looking above that, and I look to America a lot with what people do in the space, and remaining independent, being able to work with sponsors and people as I see fit. Don't have someone sitting over the top of me telling me what I can and can't say. I don't usually react very well to that. I've got ambitions to change the way, firstly, how sport's covered in not only Western Australia, but Australia with greater insight because of my experience. Not saying there's not guys that have in the media right now that don't. There's not a lot of independent guys, though. There's not really anyone that's independent.
Very true.
You've got great experience in Channel 7, Channel 9, a lot of the radio stations, but there's always someone there. And whether or not that impacts it, you have a responsibility to your employer, where if I'm my employer and I'm the one doing the deals with sponsors and doing the deals with guests and I'm the reason, well, that's a great advantage. So I've got really high ambition to change the way that sports are done in Australia.
Smart way for a broadcaster to mitigate that right now might be to offer you the deal of a lifetime to come into their stable. So how would you view something like that?
Is this happening right now? Are you offering me?
Just posing a hypothetical.
Look, I think working with good people is the way to beat anything. You can have an idea or you can have a vision, but if you don't have good people around you, like, you can't do it. So, hey, media stable.
There you go. Well, come on in, Will. Hey, one of the things I did really love about that, where your interview style, where you would go out and engage the expert or the person that you're interviewing, find out a little bit more. Don't come in so cold. But that's a message out there for experts as well. Don't feel like you can't get in there and have a chat to the producer or to the presenter a little bit earlier. Get a bit of a feel for where they're going with it, because it does take the ease, the pain, the nervousness away, and get you a bit more into your zone where you can get your best performance.
Yeah, I would say as the broadcaster who's experienced that, like, if you can, ideal. And as an interviewer, you're right, Will, you've got to take that time. It's part of the job to warm up that interview guest. But sometimes on the other side of the coin, don't be perturbed if you don't get that moment. No one means ill for you. It's just that the show's busy. There's been a last minute change, and sometimes you're going to be shunted into the chair, and it's like, I'm sorry, you've got 10 seconds. We're about to go. So have a little strategy in mind to help yourself calm down.
Well, because you come across more knowledgeable if you're relaxed.
Yeah.
Like the difference between an expert that has the same amount of knowledge as each other, but one's relaxed and one's uptight. Yeah. Well, you're gonna listen to the one that's relaxed. So if you can put something in place that does relax, like I get nervous before I host or broadcast. I get really nervous, but if I can take a few deep breaths, just relax. Think, what's the worst thing could possibly happen? Probably defame someone or
I know.
swear or something. But even if you do that,
you're allowed to swear. You're allowed to swear, and there's no dump button. This is all live, raw, and it's only because we don't like to edit and put extra resources.
Don't worry, I don't edit either. That's exactly why.
But editing, if you edit, then you're taking away the real element. From
real.
It. And I love real, and I love that what you're doing there, Will, is that you are real, and I think that's a rare commodity there these days, Carms, in some of our presenters and some of the media, because I think there's some of them just going through the motions, whereas I sense that Will really does find out a little bit more about the person and who they're interviewing, and I think that's unique to you, and also to you dive and ask the questions that are very different.
It could be inexperienced as well. Like I haven't been in the media industry. Like I have been, but not really. I'm not blighted by kind of any egos or any politics, because I don't really buy into that.
And you're not jaded yet.
No, that's it. Yet. Keyword yet.
It'll come.
Hey, Carms, you're on the Experts podcast. So things are only going up further for you. Hey, we've run out of time. I've got to ask you, though, this one question. Yes. You'd filled in over the summer for Millsy. Did an amazing job. You interviewed all of his people and others. Who was your best interview over the summer period?
Would you want me to just say Nick Hayes, or do you want me to pretend?
No, who was it? Who did you enjoy speaking to?
No, I'll say it was you, Nick, but who did I really enjoy? No, you were great, Nick, because you get it, right? People who get it and can get relaxed and you can have banter, that's the best radio. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
If you can have banter. The one that I enjoyed the most, I interviewed a quantum physicist and quantum computing expert that I was just so out of my depth.
Yeah.
I just had no idea what he was talking about, but it made me nervous to interview. I needed to listen to every word he said, because the next question coming up, if you're not listening, it's just you just sound like an idiot, because he's so intelligent.
And so that taps into that junky experience of going, I love being nervous now. Like when you get put out of your comfort zone again after you've started to get used to something, you get a real hit of dopamine and adrenaline. And you're like, this is awesome.
I know we're wrapping up, but that's footy and media are the same. I get the same. It's the closest feeling I've had to playing footy is broadcasting.
Wow.
Like, especially at the ABC, I was more nervous at the ABC because you're doing everything. Is pressing that start button to start the show.
Yeah.
And then finishing it, it's the same feel. It's very similar feeling to playing a game of footy. Yeah.
How cool is that? So rewarding, you know. And I often say this, and I think it's misinterpreted sometimes, to say if your job doesn't make you nervous anymore, time for a new job. But what I mean, it's okay to be relaxed and comfortable, but it's a thrill when you really get nervous again, and it can really teach you what you're capable of.
It takes you to another level. It takes you to the best that you can possibly be. And to your point, Carmen, if you don't get nervous, you don't care. And when you don't care, you've got to get out of what you're doing. I love that. Hey, Will, awesome. Hey, if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do it?
hello@backchatpodcast.com.au. I reckon it's one of my 10 emails, but that'll get me. hello@backchatpodcast.com.au. You can find us on social as well. We're out and about.
And one of my neighbours is a big listener of the podcast. He saw photos of us on Instagram, but he said, "Have you listened to his podcast?" And I said, "Has he got a podcast?" But I'm into it now, and I love it. And that's how you find out.
Yeah.
These are the things that are going on. So sign up to, what is it? It's Backchat. Backchat. Get involved.
Matty Pavlich coming up next week. Schofield v Pavlich off the field.
Bit of West Coast versus Freo. Well, I tell you what, Carmen, don't you listen. You might go back to Freo.
Oh, no.
Awkward. Well,
don't tell Pav I jumped off.
Be the first question I ask.
It's another great Experts podcast. Will Schofield with us. Thanks for joining us. Carms, look forward to having you next week when we chat to another expert
Can't wait.
Another media.
You have been listening to the Experts Podcast powered by Media Stable. To get in touch with the team, head to the Media Stable website, mediastable.com.au.